Okay, this is part two of the persuasion lecture. Now, if you remember, we were talking about the Yale group, and they had these four different factors. We've gone through a couple of them, and we're now on the message. And I went through 1, 2, and 3. The first three factors of the message are variables that make a message more influential. Now we're on number 4. I saved number 4 for right here because I love talking about it because it has to do with pathos versus logos. Rational appeals, sorry about that, are logos. Does it make sense? Emotional appeals are pathos, and I'm going to argue that pathos a lot of times is more important than logos. Okay, so this specific area with pathos that I want to talk about is fear appeals, trying to scare people into doing the right thing because it works on this real visceral, gut reaction. Like this one right here, every time you smoke, ooh, that's gross, right? Or this one, talking about, follow the speed limit. Or this one right here, that's all you got to show me about crystal meth. These pictures, the before and after, you don't even have to put words. It's 100% pathos on this one. And I think you've probably seen this one maybe before. Here she is at 28, dead at 38 or 37, but right before she's dead. So you can see how effective this pathos component is. I have this one, I won't wear a helmet, it makes me look stupid. And I have this one, spare parts are for humans, don't text and drive, get a cholesterol test. So they're all trying to scare you into doing the right thing. Okay, so I have a few more about smoking, and I'm going to focus in on smoking because it's a good one. If you think about these, they're very visceral, right? And I think I like this one too, but I have these cigarette packs on here, yeah. Because in other countries, they make the cigarette packs look like this, where you have a, corpse, or, here's your lungs, or these gross teeth down here, you're hurting babies. And so they really drive this home. So I think I have a commercial on the very next slide that I'm going to show, which is a fear appeal.
When you smoke, you inhale over 4,000 chemicals. It's a toxic mix. Ammonia, the bleach and toilet cleaner. Acetone, the chemical in nail polish remover. Benzene, commonly found in paint stripper. And hydrogen cyanide, used in rat poison. And smoking delivers it straight into your body. So you won't be surprised that smoking causes mouth cancer, gangrene, and harms unborn babies. Every cigarette is doing you damage. For help to stop, visit wanttostop.info or speak to your GP or pharmacist.
Okay, back to scaring people into quitting smoking. Look at this ad right here. There's been a lot of research done on this idea. Can we scare people into quitting smoking, quitting drugs, quitting whatever? Okay, so Leventhal in 1970 had 3 different conditions in his study, and he wanted to test the effectiveness of scaring people on quitting smoking, right? Fear appeals. And so in one condition, it was no fear. Like in this condition, you just come into the laboratory. It's like, try to quit on your own. We're going to follow you and see how many people are successful at doing this in this group. In the second group, you had to read a bunch of articles on what smoking does to your body, your lungs, your heart, your skin, all these different things. In the third condition, I love this condition. You had to watch like an autopsy where they split somebody open and bring out their old black gloopy lungs and start showing them on the camera and what it does to you. And you're just like, oh my God, that sucks, right? Okay, so what did he find? Fear did work, but it only works for some people. Well, first of all, people high in self-esteem. That makes sense, right? People low in self-esteem, if you get scared, it's like, yeah, but I don't like myself anyway, right? Okay, so you're talking to the wrong person. The other thing that people high in self-esteem have is an internal locus of control. What does that mean? I'm in control of my own life. I'm not a feather in the wind. So if you scare me, I think I can do something about it. Whereas low self-esteem, that might be the most important factor. Low self-esteem people go, oh my God, you scared me. Now there's just more wind. And then finally, if you gave people specific instructions, then they knew what to do with the fear. If you just scare people go into tonic immobility, it was like, oh my God, I'm in a state of shock. But if you give them specific instructions, then they know what to do. Which leads me back to Joseph Goebbels. I love this quote right here. I'm acting on my own free will. So what did Goebbels do? He tried to scare people about Jews, right? They're coming to get us. They're going to take over the world. They're like Satan. This is the quote I mentioned earlier on the last time. It's like, think of the press as a great keyboard on which the government can play. That's very scary. Okay, so one of the people that he employed was Julius Streicher, this mean-looking guy right here. And Julius published this newspaper every week, Der Stürmer, and in Der Stürmer, he would try to scare you about the Jews and then like exalt the Nazi party. And so he was like putting all this propaganda out there, but he wouldn't just scare you with all these images because then you'd be like, oh my God, what am I going to do? He would give you some instructions. Well, here's a list of businesses you don't want to go to. If you need to report somebody, here's the office you go to. So he had all these, like, here's how you stay away from Jewish people, don't catch diseases, like all these crazy things, right? Where he was scaring people, but also coupling it with these specific instructions. Okay, this is the last factor as far as the message is concerned, which is primacy versus recency effects. If you were in my intro class, maybe you remember me showing this list that said table, cloud, book, tree, chalk, bench, light, cat, all this other stuff. And sometimes what you would do is you would remember what was on the first of the list. And so let's say that there's 9 speakers. You're going to a conference. You don't want to be in the middle because people really, you listen to what they hear first. But sometimes people also listen to where they hear last. What was the very last thing I caught? They forget the stuff in the middle. So definitely when it comes to persuasion, if you have a lot of people up there on a panel or a lot of people talking, you want to be first or last, but not right in the middle, because right in the middle is where everybody forgets. They might remember the last thing they just heard or the first thing that they heard. Okay, the recipient. Okay, finally, I'm just going to show 5 little things on the recipient, and we'll be done with the Yale group. Okay, they looked at a number of factors with the audience. Are they informed? I mentioned this before, I think. Are they involved or educated? If you got a smart audience that's really, locked in, you're probably going to have to bring a 2 or more than 2-sided message to show multi-facets of the issue. Okay, but if you kind of have an audience that's not so smart or is not really, they don't really care so much, maybe you can get real dogmatic and go with that one-sided message. Now, the other thing that they showed is like distracted audience. I always show this thing on here. Those aren't the droids you're looking for. If you can distract people, they're more easily persuaded. And so a lot of times people make use of this distraction technique. A distracted audience, sometimes but not always, is more persuadable. The last one, as far as the recipient goes, I know I kind of whipped through these, but 1, 2, and 3 are kind of the same, or locked in. Personality. Now, one of the things they looked at as far as personality trait is some people have a high need for cognition. This is me. I'm always think, overanalyze. That's not a good thing, you know what I mean? Some people are low in need for cognition, and they found that people that don't like to think are more easily persuaded than people like me, because I'm always like, what do you mean? I'm always tearing things apart. Okay, and then self-monitoring. If you remember self-monitoring, I think from one of the last lectures, self-monitoring is how much do you change yourself to fit in with other people. And some people are high self-monitors. They're like the chameleon, always changing to fit in with others. And these people are more persuadable. So what they did with self-monitoring is they showed some Heineken ads. When they would show it this way, you're moving up, then the social chameleons, they like this ad. Remember the people that are the opposite of the social chameleons? These are the people that's like, I'm just going to be true to myself no matter what. So see here, this is more like a peripheral route, or it's not really central to whether or not it's a good beer. If they changed the ad and said taste the difference, then the low self-monitor responded to the ad because they're going, that's, of course, you're supposed to focus in on the central part, which is the message. Does the beer taste good or not? I don't care if a lot of other people are drinking it or not. Okay, I hope that those few things on the recipient made sense. Okay, I really love this section. It's two different persuasion techniques that people use to get people to do what they want them to do. Okay, the first one and the second one are both easy, but the first one is called foot in the door. In the foot in the door, you ask for a small favor first to get your foot in the door, and then you come back later and ask for a bigger favor. That's your target favor, the big favor. But somehow getting your foot in the door makes people more willing to say yes to this bigger favor. This is the most famous study in the area. Friedman and Fraser, 1966. What did they do? Well, the big favor they really wanted was you to put this great big ass drive carefully sign right in your front yard. They made it really big, and it's even worse looking than the one I made right here. Okay, so most people say no to this. So they want people to say yes, so they use the foot in the door technique on half of the neighborhoods. In half of the neighborhoods, they go a week earlier and say, will you put this little postcard in your window right here? We're just concerned about kids in the neighborhood and people are speeding around. We want a safe driving initiative. Okay, so if you look at it this way, they ask for a small favor, and then they come back a week later in this foot in the door condition and ask for this bigger favor. And you say, oh, that's not going to have that much of an effect, right? Look at the results. 76% of the people in the foot in the door condition, that's 3 out of 4 people, will put that big ass sign in their front yard. In the control condition, 83% of the people are going, F no, that's not going in my front yard, it doesn't look good. And so they want to know why. Why do people do it? A lot of it has to do, to me, with dissonance. If you're inconsistent in your behavior, that's dissonant, right? You already said you're going to be on board with the safe driving initiative, right? Now, if I come back and then you say no, it's like, well, wait a minute, you said yes, and now you're saying no, or are you on board or not? So it's a guilt thing. How do I resolve my guilt? Stay consistent, put the sign in my front yard. That's one explanation. Maybe it's not the best. Now I can stack this. See? Get bigger and bigger and bigger favors and escalate. And so this is where I go into a couple of different areas, but the first one I think I have on here is called sales. This drives me crazy. It's like I come in for one small item and I leave with 17. You know what I'm talking about? And it's called lowballing. And what is lowballing? It's like, well, okay, you want this? Well, do you want to add on that and that and that? And pretty soon you walk out the door and you're spending this much money, not what you wanted to spend in the first place. This is the thing with cable TV. Oh, you want ESPN on there? Okay, well, basic plus ESPN plus this, it just starts all adding up. I came in, you said it was only going to charge me like $50 a month. Now I've got a $150 cable bill, almost $200. Same thing with my effing cell phone. I go in there, it's like, I just want a new cell phone. Well, you're going to want to know a case with that, right? A screen protector, extra charger. You're walking out of the store, it's like, God damn. You know what I mean? And even a car, you go buy a car, it's like, yeah, but don't you want better wheels on it and the leather seats? And you want this, and you want to tint those windows, and there's all kinds of add-ons. And so it goes from a small purchase to a great big purchase over here because you have to have all the add-ons. I hope that made sense. I think I said I had 2 different areas I was going to apply the foot in the door to. The first one was sales. The second one is cults. And now I'm going to go back to the Beehive project because in cults, escalation of commitment is right here. The foot in the door is number 5. Okay, so what does that mean? Think about this guy right here. I love talking about Jim Jones, this cook right here. Why? Because 909 people, sometimes I've heard it's 913. Don't take these numbers for granted, but whatever. Over 900 people killed themselves, and there's just littered everywhere. You can see it. Under his direction, all these people right here just drank the Kool-Aid and off themselves, including their babies. It's sick. So why would they do this? Well, he doesn't ask them to off themselves on day one. I mean, that's like way down the road, foot in the door. What does he do? Well, if you know anything about Jim Jones, he would sit up and like on the city streets, and he would have this little table with a chair, and he would be folding letters for the church. This is his guise or his ruse. And then as people walk by, he says, "Hey, would you help me fold some of these letters?" Foot in the door. That's not a very big thing. Little postcard in your window. Then it's like if you did it, I mean, let's say 1,000 people walk by, only one person does it. It's like, hey, you really like doing that? Will you help out at the church? Now keep in mind, those kind of people, authoritarian personalities from broken families, he's going to attract those kind of people. Well, we give all your belongings to the church because really God's a communist and we don't really own anything. It's stewardship, right? And we all just kind of share everything anyway. And he had this really diverse kind of, white, black, this, that, all kinds of people, you know what I mean? And it seemed like a good idea, right? He didn't ask you to give up all your personal belongings to the church on day one. Then he said, hey, I don't think that we can live in America because the democracy doesn't like that we're communistic. They don't understand God's plan for us. We're going to move down to Guyana and start Jonestown, the People's Temple. He brings these 900 people down, to South America with him. Now he had this weird thing where it's like he believed he was the only straight man. I don't know how everybody bought into this, especially all the dudes down there. And then it's like, okay, now I've got to have your wife and this, that, and the other, and you can't have sex with her. It's like, well, that's kind of weird. And then he gets you to drink the poison flavor egg. See, he just builds you right on up. By the time that people are that far in, they don't know what to do. Okay, so this escalation, Adolf Hitler was great at it. He didn't just come in day one and say, throw all your Christian values away. He escalated people up to that. Same thing with David Koresh. He escalated people up to the point at which the compound was burned down and everybody lost their life. Even Marshall Applewhite, he doesn't come in on day one and say, hey, drink the poison Kool-Aid and we're going to leave our bodies and get onto the spaceship and drive away with Jesus. Doe works your ass up to that, moment. And so if you're using a cult for your Beehive project, you have to think about this because this technique is how they work. This is how they get people to do these things. Okay, another component of it is self-perception theory. People go, well, why? People are so far in, they have to start changing the way they feel about themselves. Either cults, gangs, etc. But remember when I talked about how I'm a recycler? Why? Because I went past behavior. Well, I haven't moved my whole family down here to Guyana and this, that, and the other and gave up all my wealth. And you see what I mean? I'm not the same person that I started out as. Okay, second persuasion technique is called the door in the face. What does this mean? Well, Robert Cialdini did this research back in the 70s. This is why I like him. You should really read a book by him. But over at ASU, what he would do is he would walk around campus, and for half of the students, they would ask him, would you serve as a chaperone for a group of delinquent children to the Phoenix Zoo for a day? And most ASU students are going, I don't think so. Some people say yes, but most say no. Now, for half the students, they preface this. And what they ask for is, will you sign a contract? We're in desperate need of juvenile delinquent counselors for the next 2 years to work with these kids for once a week. We need you to make a firm commitment right now. Will you sign the contract? Okay, so this is the door in the face condition. Remember, they want this is the favor, the target favor. Okay, so most people definitely say no to the contract. There's like, no way. They slam the door in your face, and then people come back and say, well, If you won't do that, will you serve as a chaperone for just one day? And now the majority of the people say yes. This is the genius of it. Okay, it's not as dramatic, the door in the face is what this one means right here, but over half the students will take them to the zoo now. Here, 2/3 of the students basically, I'm not taking them to the zoo. So they were able to increase their odds right here. And why? I think I have this on here. I think it's a mutual compromise. I've slammed the door in your face, and now you come back with a smaller favor. I'm going to slam it again. It's like, well, now I seem disagreeable, right? There's this acquiescence bias, like, well, you kind of want to be agreeable with people. There's all kinds of things they brought in to kind of explain this. Now, let me say one last thing about this. If I can go as far as sales techniques. Will you get this? Will you buy this one? No. Will you buy this one? No. Will you buy this one? No. All the way down the line. Then I hit that magic point where you say yes as a salesman, right? I start you off big, even with houses and stuff, and then you will buy this one because you've seen the contrast right here. Now, one day I was lecturing about this, and a mama in the audience says, you know who's great at this? They're called kids. Can I have $100? No. Can I have $50? No. Can I have $25? No. Can I have $10? Okay. I mean, they start off big. Can I have a new bike? Right? Can I have a PS4? Whatever it is, and then they back off. Well, can I have an ice cream cone? If they just ask for the ice cream cone right here, they might not get it. But kids know if they use the door in the face, they eventually, the parents will stop saying no. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that one. Okay, this is the last section. Finally, we're here, resisting persuasion, but I really like this section. How do we resist these persuasive attempts I've been talking about? I have 3 words I want you to know for the test. The first one is forewarning. It's exactly what it sounds like. You know it's coming. As soon as you know it's coming, you can kind of ready yourself. Well, part of this readying, if I can talk right, is reactance. Remember me talking about reactance? It's like, I'm not fucking doing that. They're going to make me do it. Fuck that shit. You know what I mean? So I get really reactant. I mean, this is why I love Rage Against the Machine, which I already talked about this before. Okay, so these 2 terms are very straightforward. I don't want to spend a lot of time on them. But the third one is what I want to spend time on. Inoculation. What's an inoculation? Well, now's a good time to talk about the COVID. What are they going to do? They're going to take a weak or dead form of the virus and they're going to shoot it into your body. And then your body's going to develop antibodies, T cells, right, to this virus. And then when the real COVID comes along, you already have soldiers ready to fend it off. That's how inoculations work. Okay, so with attitudes, or with persuasion, I should say, what we do is we give you practice defending weak attacks on your whatever resistance, and then later on when the stronger attacks come on, you'll already have the antibodies to fight off these stronger attacks. I hope that just made sense. Okay, so McAllister, back in the 1980s, he wanted to see if he could curb teenage smoking. And how did he do this? He had high school students come in and inoculate a group of 7th graders. Okay, so they engaged in role play games. And here's what they would do. In the control group, there is nothing. You know, there's always a control group. What would happen if we did nothing? We just tracked these kids to see if they smoke in high school. Now, in the other condition, the 7th graders did this role play, and so they had this inoculation. I think I have it on here. Okay, so what was it? Well, they would get the 7th grader in the middle, and then all these older kids was like, come on, smoke, do it. What are you, a chicken? Come on. And so when they started doing this, and once the 7th grader got a little uncomfortable, they say, okay, let's stop. When people do this to you, I want you to use this antibody. I'd be a real chicken if I smoked just to impress you. Okay, so they got this practice defending this weak attack. Now, maybe that seems hokey, but all of the DARE programs are based on this inoculation model, right? We inoculate people so later on when we get the peer pressure, they won't give in. Now, you can see as they track these students across time, if we just did nothing by the time you got to high school, you know, almost 15% smoke. But see, 15 versus 5, that's a big difference. They cut into teenage smoking by 10% in his study. Okay, when McAllister first came out with all that stuff, he was very excited about it. And then he started seeing how advertisers used inoculation in kind of inappropriate ways where they would inoculate, like, I know they're going to tell you not to buy our product, but dot, dot, dot. Another thing he started to notice is this. This happens all the time in advertising. Is that if I make product A over here, I could just focus in on why my product is good on my commercial. My product is good because of A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Or I could just really not talk about my product and then just like focus on why you shouldn't buy the other product and how shitty it is all the time. It's like, well, don't buy that one because this, that, and the other. And I don't have to even talk about my product. It's attitude inoculation. So when you go to buy their product, you already have all these antibodies, things in the back of your head saying don't buy that product. You know who does this? It's called politicians. I can focus on why you should vote for me. Well, I'm good. I mean, just focus on why I'm good. You know what I mean? Or I could just not fucking talk about myself and then just talk about why that other person is shitty the whole time. That's called politics in America. Don't vote for them because they both do it. All of them do it. You know what I mean? They use this attitude inoculation against the other candidate, and that's like, political campaign status quo. So that's why I'm saying this upcoming election is kind of inoculation wars. Are you going to talk about what you're going to do, product A, or why not to buy product B? Just use inoculation. I don't care which side you're on. I could care less. So in this way, I'm going to come back full circle and say this. When I go around planet Earth, I could focus on, my strengths. Or I could roam around planet Earth focusing on your weaknesses. And in a way, I'm inoculating people against you. This is what Don Miguel Ruiz is talking about when he talks about being a black magician cursing other people. So this part of the lecture is for Tim. Because I could go around cursing the darkness and focusing in on all the darkness. Or I could make another choice. I could praise the light and everything that's in my life so that when the darkness comes around, I have some antibodies. I hope you like that. I'll see you next time.